Emma tightened her apron and exhaled deeply, glancing at the clock above the cash register. Another grueling double shift at Millie's Diner, a small, old-fashioned cafe on the corner of a bustling New York street. The paycheck barely covered her rent, and her overdue electric bill loomed over her like a dark cloud. Yet, despite her own struggles, she never let exhaustion or worry dim the warmth in her heart. It was a cold November evening, the kind that carried a biting wind and made people rush indoors. Outside, the streetlights flickered, casting a dim glow over the pavement as the city bustled with life. Emma wiped down the counter, her hands moving in practiced motions, when she noticed a young boy standing outside the diner's window. He couldn't have been older than 10, his clothes worn and oversized, his thin arms wrapped around himself for warmth. His wide brown eyes followed every plate of food that passed by, his hunger evident in the way he swallowed hard each time a customer dug into their meal. Emma sighed. It wasn't the first time she had seen him lingering outside. Over the past few weeks, he had become a familiar sight, always watching but never coming in. Something about the way he stood, shoulders hunched, gaze yearning, tugged at her heart. She stepped outside, the cold air biting at her exposed skin, and knelt down in front of him. "Hey there, sweetheart. You hungry?" The boy hesitated, nodding slightly, his gaze darting to the ground. "Come inside," she said, offering a smile. "It's warm in here." His eyes widened with both hope and hesitation. "I don't have any money," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the din of the city. Emma shook her head. "You don't need money. Just come in." She led him to a booth in the corner, away from the prying eyes of customers who might question why a homeless child was being fed for free. A few minutes later, she placed a steaming bowl of tomato soup and a grilled cheese sandwich in front of him. He ate quickly, as if afraid the food would disappear, his small hands trembling as he lifted the spoon to his lips. Emma watched him with a pang in her chest. No child should have to know this kind of hunger. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Oliver," he mumbled between bites. "Where are your parents, Oliver?" He swallowed hard, looking away. "My mom, she got sick. She was all I had. When she died, I had nowhere to go." Emma felt her throat tighten. No foster care, no shelters, just the cold streets. The thought was unbearable. From that night on, whenever she saw Oliver outside, she brought him in and fed him. She didn't tell anyone, not her boss, not the other waitresses. If management found out, she might lose her job, but she couldn't turn away a starving child. She had no idea that someone had been watching. A silent witness in the farthest booth, a man sat alone, dressed in a tailored black suit. His silver hair and deep-set eyes carried an air of wisdom. Maxwell Grant was a name whispered in financial circles, one of the wealthiest and most influential men in the country, a billionaire philanthropist, but also a man who rarely revealed his heart. That night, as he observed Emma's kindness toward Oliver, something stirred inside him. He had built an empire from the ground up, but in the process, he had lost sight of something fundamental, the human connection that truly made life meaningful. For days, Maxwell continued to visit the diner, always choosing the same booth. Each time, he watched Emma care for the boy as if he were her own. She never expected anything in return. Even though it was clear she struggled herself, she gave selflessly, without hesitation. On the fifth night, as Emma handed Oliver a plate of pancakes, Maxwell finally spoke. "Excuse me, miss." Emma turned, startled. He had been coming in for days, but never interacted beyond the occasional nod. "Yes, sir," she asked. "Can I have the check?" He placed a crisp $100 bill on the table before she could respond. "And I'd like a word with you." She hesitated but nodded, approaching his booth. "You have a kind heart," he said, studying her. "You take care of that boy like he's your own." Emma stiffened. "If you're about to tell me I shouldn't be giving him free food." He held up a hand. "Quite the opposite. I admire what you're doing." Emma blinked. That was the last thing she expected. Maxwell leaned forward. "Tell me, if you had the means to do more for him, would you?" She scoffed softly. "Of course, but I can barely take care of myself." A knowing smile touched his lips. "What if I told you I could change that?" The unexpected gift. The next morning, Emma was greeted by an unfamiliar sight, a sleek black car parked outside the diner. Inside, Maxwell Grant sat waiting. When she stepped outside, he rolled down the window. "Get in," he said. Emma hesitated. "Why?" "I have something to show you." With a deep breath, she climbed in. They drove in silence until they reached a grand building in the heart of the city. The sign above read, Hope Haven Youth Center. Maxwell led her inside, where children were laughing, playing, and learning in warm classrooms. The place buzzed with life, a stark contrast to the bleakness of the streets Oliver had called home. "This is yours," Maxwell said. Emma's heart pounded. "Mine. I bought this place years ago, but never knew what to do with it. Watching you and Oliver made me realize it should belong to someone with a heart like yours, someone who truly cares." Tears burned Emma's eyes. "But I don't know how to run a center." "You'll learn," he assured her, "and I'll fund everything. You'll never have to struggle again." A full circle moment. Oliver was the first to move in, and Emma became more than a caretaker. She became family. Over time, more children found a home at Hope Haven. Kids who had once been invisible to the world were now seen, fed, and loved. Years later, Oliver, now grown and successful, stood at a podium at a charity gala. Maxwell had passed away, but his legacy lived on. "People always ask me how my life changed," Oliver said, his voice thick with emotion. "The truth is, it started with a waitress who saw a hungry boy and decided to act. That small act of kindness saved my life. And thanks to a billionaire who believed in her, hundreds of lives have been changed forever." Emma watched from the crowd, tears slipping down her cheeks. She had struggled. She had sacrificed. But in the end, kindness had come full circle. And all because she had fed a hungry boy, unaware that someone was watching.